Whoever you are, wherever you are, hope you are blessed and doing safe. Ladies and gentlemen, greetings, family. Of course, I'm tuning in. You see me without the glasses off today. But if you're looking for some opportunities, particular advertisement opportunities, then look no further at the link at the bottom to my email address. You can hit me up for advertisement opportunities. We are supporting and promoting your businesses here on this channel. You can also, if you would like to donate and subscribe to our Patreon, a link is at the bottom as well. So you have multiple ways in which you can advertise with the platform by emailing me when we go on through our live stream. You also have access to premium content, those that want to see premium content that you will not find here on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter, as I am suspended probably by now. You guys can check out the Patreon at link at the bottom. But advertisement opportunities, definitely email me, gavin.grich1@gmail.com for rates. And for the Patreon, it is the same as the YouTube channel. It is channel gboot2786. All right, I'll holla. Peace.
Hi, I'm attorney Check out my latest book, The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania versus William H. Cosby Jr., The Destruction of Due Process in America. For approximately 2 years now, I have gone on a painstaking quest to investigate the rise and fall of an American icon, Bill Cosby. In the mid-1980s, there was not a star that was higher than Cosby. Advertisements with Coca-Cola, Yellow, Kodak, along with the #1 television show for 5 straight years in a row. On Thursday nights, it was must-see TV on NBC. Cosby resurrected the genre of the traditional family sitcom that was once thought dead by television critics. He did this as a Black American with an all-black cast and showed mainstream network executives in white America that it was possible to be successful without showing the worst in people. He also demonstrated the power that television had, as it can make younger people dream to be the best that they can be. However, like many celebrity stars, unfortunately, they all come crashing down, sometimes by their own fault, others not so much. In this book, I attempted to highlight certain things. We go in depth into both of his trials in 2017 and 2018, respectively. What if I told you that these criminal trials were politically motivated by an overzealous district attorney? Will you also be shocked to learn the attacks on Mr. Cosby did not start in 2014, but also in the 90s, not long after his attempted quest to purchase a major network? From where did all of these allegations of sexual misconduct come from? Were the accusers telling the truth? In the 2 years of research, with some help from others interested in learning the truth and facts about this case, we discussed both the legal reasons why his prosecution and trial were illegal, unwarranted, and also the possible personal motives as to why this may have occurred. Most importantly, we warn about the dangers of prejudice and why trial by social media, or mainstream media rather, should never be the norm. All this and more in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania versus William H. Cosby Jr., The Destruction of Due Process in America. Available on Amazon this fall in Kindle and paperback format.
That is the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania versus William H. Cosby Jr., The Destruction of Due Process in the United States. That is available right now on Amazon Kindle. You just go to this website on Amazon Kindle, ladies and gentlemen, and purchase with one click the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania versus William H. Cosby Jr. Also, we have, this is one way you can support the channel, support me by purchasing this book. I'd appreciate it if you would do it. Subscribe to our Facebook page where you get some updates, especially about the case. I actually am posting something now that my brother Drew Story News. You all know him. He's actually been on the warpath he's been busy, man. My mother's been hustling, and he's actually come up with some stuff recently about W. Kamau Dumbbell, and we will be talking about that. I have not forgotten. I'm going to be doing and dropping a story about that, my analysis on the documentary. Although I've talked about it, it's not a documentary, it's really a mockumentary in how they handled the Bill Cosby case. But you go to their Facebook page, ladies and gentlemen, and you can look at and check out that on the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania versus William H. Cosby Jr., The Destruction of Due Process in the United States at Commonwealth Cos. Go to at Commonwealth Cos, the Facebook page, ladies and gentlemen. And also, we have some other stuff we can do to support this channel. Go to Nawny'sCreoleBlends.com and order you some Nawny's Creole Seasoning Blend. Try it on chicken, meat, or fish. Nawny's goes great with every dish. That's right, you all do that. And of course, we have our songs, Video Soul, and Gotta Get On Up that are available on iTunes and Spotify and Amazon. And if you want to also mainly support this channel, go to the Cash App, PayPal, Google Pay links at the bottom. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, our topics are as follows. Vince McMahon forced to retire from the WWE over sexual misconduct allegations. Biden to trade a dangerous arms dealer for WNBA star. And how do we combat cultural appropriation? All this and more, and we will be joined by the author of The Man Crisis, Shawn James. You can support buy one of Shawn's books, Stop Simping in Cyberspace. And we're going to bring our brother in, Shawn. Good evening. How are you?
I'm fine, Catherine. How are you?
I'm doing fine. We're going to go ahead and get this party started, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, YouTube has us on a shadow ban and doesn't support our channel. So hit the like, share, and subscribe button just to know that we are not dead. We are very much alive, and we're going to go ahead and get started. But of course, like we do with all things, we'd like to get on up. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, why don't we go ahead and get on up?
Girl, come on. Gotta dance to the beat. Cause on the dance floor is where we'll be. Show me what you got. Gotta feel the groove. Feel the groove, get on the floor. Get on up. Right now the party's wasted. There's nothing much to do. But once the groove gets started, tell me, what do you have to lose? Just look into my eyes, girl, as we glide across the room. And what to my surprise now, the beat takes hold of you. Now if you're feeling like I'm feeling, so come on baby, let's start dealing. Time to get this party started. Ain't no time for the broken hearted. When the rhythm takes hold of you, there's only one thing left to do. Cause the beat is really moving. Time to get your body moving. Gotta get on up and move your body. Cause when the beat is really grooving, it's time to feel your body moving. Gotta get on up and shake something. Feel the groove, get on the floor. Get on up. Tell the DJ play the whispers. Rock steady in the mood. Put on earth, wind, and fire. Tonight we're gonna groove. Show me how you do the four corners. Electric slide or two. Hit the bus stop or do the bunny hop, baby. It's really up to you. Now if you're feeling like I'm feeling, so come on baby, let's start dealing. Time to get this party started. Ain't no time for the broken hearted. When the rhythm takes hold of you, there's only one thing left to do. Cause the beat is really moving. Time to get your body moving. Gotta get on up and move your body. Cause when the beat is really grooving, it's time to feel your body moving. Gotta get on up and shake something. Feel the groove, get on the floor. Get on up. Now 2020 hasn't been the best year of all times. We've been dealing with death, the pandemic, racism, bad policing, and all the bad rhymes. But like Uncle Snoop once said, if you breathe and you achieve. And so if you're ready, I need you all to get on up. Are you ready? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Get your butt on the dance floor. 5 and 6 and 7, 8. This jam we appreciate. We're gonna slide and step on the beat. On the dance floor is where we'll be. Feel the groove, get on the floor. Get on up and move your body. Cause when the beat is really grooving, it's time to feel your body moving. Gotta get on up and shake something. Feel the groove, get on the floor. Get on up, baby. Yeah, gotta get on up. Come on, baby, gotta get on up, baby. Feel the groove, get on the floor. Get on up. Feel the groove, get on the floor. Get on up.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome, everyone, to another exciting edition of Gavin Reshaw Presents Random Topic Thursdays here on channel G-Boot 2786 on Gavin Reshaw and on Gavin Rich 2786 on Facebook. Whoever you are, wherever you are, I hope you are blessed and doing safe. We have on our extreme friend and author extraordinaire, Brother Shawn James. Shawn, how are you doing this evening?
I'm good, Gavin. How are you?
I'm doing great. Why don't you go ahead, Shawn, and do some plug-ins right now?
All right. There are 8 days to go on the John Haynes Kickstarter. And if you want to get a copy of the first comic at SJS Direct, you may do so by clicking a link to the Kickstarter in the chat. So I'm going to drop that link, and you can put in a pledge for the John Haynes Kickstarter. And it only takes $5 to get a digital version, $15 to get a paper copy, and you'll be helping me be able to produce more SJS Direct comics in the future. In addition, we have the 2 books of the SJS Direct 22 catalog, Isis Legacy and E-Steam Horror of the Hyena Woman, available on Amazon.com right now in paperback and Kindle format. So if you head over to Amazon, you'll be able to pick up those 2 books. And if you head over to the Kickstarter, you'll be able to pick up the first full SJS Direct comic.
All right, so you heard that, ladies and gentlemen. Support 9 days to support the John Haynes Kickstarter that's available. He's going to put the link up. You ought to put the link in the chat for everybody that can click on it, Shawn.
It's in there.
I didn't see it. Let's see. I don't see it.
Oh well, I'll put it up again. I just put it there, but I don't know if it became a hyperlink. So I'll put it.
Well, Shawn, welcome again, and welcome everybody. I don't see it, but we'll put up the. If you send it in a private chat, I'll make sure to put it up in the
All right,
private.
I'll put it in the private chat.
Yeah. So anyway, guys, we're gonna go ahead and get started and talk about our topics. There we go, right there. We would like to deal with something. Of course, this is some news that has come up. This caught my attention. I think it's some. I guess you could say it's big news, and that is that the United States is in negotiations to bring Brittany Griner back home. Now, the trade is for a dangerous arms dealer in federal prison, and in exchange, support reportedly it'll be Brittany Griner and Paul Allen, I believe who it is, and the foreign Paul Whelan, I apologize, and the gentleman who they're going to trade for, his name is Victor Bout, who is a notorious Russian arms dealer. Now, Secretary of State Antony Blinken was on, was actually went live. I want to say sometime earlier today, and made the following statement. We're going to play that right now. You all give me the copy. Could you please put the copyright disclaimer up just in case they come with some bullshit? This is fair use, ladies and gentlemen. Fair Use Act of 1976, under the copyright fair use section of under the Copyright Act of 1976. They've gotten more notorious with this stuff too, Sean, with these copyright strikes they've been getting out, even with the disclaimers.
Yeah, I know.
And I'm getting tired of it. So we're gonna put. I had my whole channel on Tuesday. Sunday, my whole live stream was blocked by Time Warner.
You know, they pull a lot of slick tricks. That's why I moved one video all the way over to Rumble, because I just didn't want to deal with YouTube's nonsense.
That's what I'm gonna do.
Days, I expect to speak with Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov for the first time since the war began. I plan to raise an issue that's a top priority for us. The release of Americans Paul Whelan and Brittany Griner, who've been wrongfully detained and must be allowed to come home. We put a substantial proposal on the table weeks ago to facilitate their release. Our governments have communicated repeatedly and directly on that proposal. And I'll use the conversation to follow up personally, and I hope move us toward a resolution. I'm also focused every single day on arbitrarily detained Americans in more than half a dozen countries around the world. We have a team that works on this 24/7, led by Roger Parsons. This is, for me, an issue of utmost importance. It's something that I see as fundamental to my own responsibilities in this job, looking out for the men and women of this department, looking out for any American who is arbitrarily detained abroad or otherwise needs our help when they're overseas.
Now, this is an
I'm so glad we got
Victor Bout, who has been detained in the United States custody. And this is an article from USA Today. Now, look what the article, the title of this is: Dangerously Misguided, but Maybe Necessary. U.S. negotiate scary Brittany Griner swap with Russia. And they say here that reactions from experts in hostage negotiation were split. Publicizing deals to free Americans set bad precedent and endangers Americans, some say. Others believe previous examples of such exchanges demonstrate it's the only way to safely return wrongfully detained prisoners. Now, some people, you read here, it says here, Bout was a critical player in the global illicit arms trade, not because he could obtain weapons, but because he could deliver his destructive cargo anywhere in the world through his control of a private fleet of military aircraft. And he did just that. This is coming from a gentleman whose name is Zacharias Zakaraskiewicz. Did I pronounce that right? He's one of the DEA agents behind the operation that led to Bout's arrest in 2008. He says that some critics describe the trade as dangerously misguided right here. And it says it's a shame that this administration cannot differentiate between compassion and naivety in conducting such ill-fated barters as that being offered for Victor Bout. Americans abroad throughout the world just became a commodity, a bargaining chip to be detained and traded for others that Russia or other hostile nations want to bring home. He says that while the U.S. shouldn't abandon its citizens in their time of need, uh, he says that efforts should not be centered around an ill advised trade, especially for someone known as the merchant of debt, who provided the fuel for conflicts across the globe. Swapping prisoners and offering concessions to terrorist organizations or dangerous nations is possibly highly problematic, said Rob Sale, a former FBI negotiator. Yeah, you get her or a couple of people out now, but down the road it sends a message to other countries that if you want something from the United States government, you take some Americans and trump up some charges. Since that's a very bad message to send. But Gilbert offered this caveat. He says, at the same time, we know from past experience the only way to bring people home is through these deals. He said it's very impossible to stand with one case and say this is going to be the one we don't go to the negotiating table for. Shawn, what do you think of this?
I think this is going to be a very bad deal for America because it's going to make America look really weak. And it's going to make America look really weak because we're going to go out here and trade a major arms dealer who has gone out here and started conflicts all over the world for a celebrity who really got herself into this mess. And the whole thing is it makes the nation look weak, and it makes it look weak because we are taking a very dangerous criminal and putting them on the table to trade back to another country. And when you do this, again, it makes us look really weak. And it also makes us look really vain because your Brittany Griner isn't somebody you would sit there and want to try to negotiate a deal for as related to putting a very dangerous individual like this on the block. And again, it just shows how out of touch our politicians are in Washington, that they're going out here looking to make this kind of deal, not understanding the impact that it could have on the world. Moreover, it sends a message to everybody else that if we go out here and kidnap one of these movie stars or one of these celebrities, what the government will do is put another dangerous criminal on the block and want to go out here and trade a dangerous criminal in exchange for a celebrity. And your Biden administration is only wanting to do this because they want to try to get Joker Joe's approval rating up, but that same approval rating can
I think
continue
they
to
want the
drop.
black woman vote, the black
Yeah,
female.
yeah, they're pandering for that vote, but that vote isn't worth the safety of the nation because long term you're going to do damage to the safety of the nation and the safety of the world, all for a couple of black female votes. And the whole thing is that you're putting a lot at risk for some votes, not understanding you're putting people in jeopardy and you're putting the whole world's safety in jeopardy, all because you want to try to win an election that you probably wouldn't win anyway, ironically due to the same types of tactics like this, because the tactics like this where you're out here looking to go out here and do things out of your insecurities and your vanity that are going to put do more damage to the world, because if this individual gets out and gets back with their contacts, we may be looking at a less safer world, and we may look at, and most of these people who are out here, our enemies, will look at us as weak, and they'll see that they have another bargaining tool that they can take advantage of by going after another celebrity and then trying to get more criminals out who are a threat to the world by going after our celebrities.
I want y'all to look at the charges this man was convicted of. Was convicted for criminal intent to traffic arms and conspiracy to kill U.S. nationals,
Yep.
U.S. officers and employees, conspiracy to acquire and export a missile system designed to destroy aircraft, conspiracy to provide material support or resources to a designated foreign terrorist organization.
He's a
He's
very dangerous individual to have out.
25 years. He has been held, so he's been in prison for 10 years. So he's due out in about 15 in about 15 more years. Of course, you get time served, but federal prison. He's in United States Penitentiary in Marion, which is in Williamson County, Illinois. Now, you think letting him out is good for Brittany Griner and Paul Whelan?
So I don't think so.
He's good. So he's good. We're gonna trade her for a WNBA player and a team that nobody even want for a sport nobody even watches, a league nobody watches. I'm not saying that I don't want her home, but I would not sure as hell use that as a bargaining chip for a pothead, unsunken one say for a pothead playing international games. Stop it. You can keep that stud. Huh. Shawn.
Yeah, they can keep her because the world will be a lot less safer if this arms dealer is back out.
I have seen the videos of Professor Black Truth on the judges. We've given them lighter sentences, but you got to remember they were in federal. I believe their charges are in federal court, which was civil rights violations. So they weren't convicted or charged with murder. These were federal charges that they received. But this is also the Biden administration at work too. Remember what they did with Ahmaud Arbery in the federal case with those killers. The federal government wanted to work out a deal where they could do their time in federal prison, and apparently had okayed it until the family objected. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember that. So the Biden administration has never been on black people's side as related to these cases, and that's why we have to keep the pressure up.
No.
That's always been our problem. We don't keep the pressure up, and then they slip through.
Yeah. So, do you think she should be in jail?
Who? Brittany Griner?
Yeah.
Well, she violated Russian law, so she should be in jail. She just doesn't understand that. Look, you can't come into other people's countries and do what you want like you are in America. These Russians are notoriously racist. They don't like black people. And when you come into their country, you have to be have your guard up and understand that anything can be used against you. So this is like when I was talking about my passport videos that a lot of black men got upset about. When you go into these other countries, understand that you are behind enemy lines, and that these people are not looking out for your best interest. And whenever you go into their country, you have a target on your back, and these people are looking to take you out. And they see a WNBA player or any type of celebrity, and they're thinking, "Hey, this is a way for us to get some money." Or this is a way for us to send a message to people like Joe Biden that you're having issues with, and they use us as pawns to get whatever they want. So we got to watch ourselves in these countries. And sadly, Brittany Griner wasn't watching herself, and she got taken out because she went into this country thinking it was just like America, not understanding that when white supremacy is global, and in these white supremacist countries, they are always looking to take out a black person. But what's interesting here is that your Brittany Griner, she wanted to be like a man, but she didn't understand what a black man goes through when he goes into these foreign lands, that we have a target on our back, and that target is always there. And if you don't look out for yourself, you can get taken out by these white supremacists all across the globe.
Yeah. Every time Mr. Pirate Brain says the LGBTQ agenda is out of control, rainbow, rainbow, rainbow. You know, Pirate Brain, Every time I see you comment and you're smiling, I think you're smiling while you're commenting just like that in your avatar. Uh, yeah, I mean, these Draconian laws that they have in different nations. I mean, if you go to Thailand, drug smuggling, that's subject to the death penalty. I
She's
believe.
lucky she didn't go there.
Yeah, and those and those, like, they're very deadly serious about stuff like that. It's just like if you went to a Muslim country, an Arab, like Saudi Arabia, they stone homosexuals. They stone people that violate, uh, you know, Islamic law and code. You don't go over there doing stuff like that. You have to respect their culture and traditions. We're pampered in the United States. We're really pampered and spoiled here, right?
Yep, we are.
I,
And the whole thing is we don't know how bad it is in these other people's countries,
right.
and how a lot of these countries participate in anti-black racism. So we have to understand that when you go to these other people's countries, they're not looking out for our best interests, and we have to look out for ourselves because the laws there here are completely different from over there. And a lot of these countries, there are a lot of racists over there. And countries like Russia and China, they don't really like black people in the first place. So black folks,
I don't like gays, especially.
no, they don't, especially do not like members of the alphabet community, and they will punish them. And your Brittany Griner just walked in there being a black alphabet person, and she had a target on her back, and she sadly didn't understand that when they see both black and alphabet, yeah, they were going to come after her at full force.
DJ B side, I haven't seen you in a while, man. It's good. Charles Barkley, good to see you. Charles Barkley said, it's good to see DJ the Woodside. You know, you like Damian Lillard when he missed that three against the Mavericks. When he missed that three at a Mavericks event, that was just terrible. I know they like to hear me do Charles Barkley. So yeah, but hit that like, share, and subscribe button. But I'm starting to get more partial to standing stuff because Skip, I gotta do this. I gotta do this. I gotta talk about all this crime, all this stuff that's going on. Skip, I didn't have this in Fairfield, Georgia. When me and Sterling Salt grew up, we had two shoes. See, America is spoiled. These people are spoiled. I wasn't spoiled like Brittany Griner. Skip. We had two shoes that we had to sell. My brother had the left shoe, I had the right shoe. Skip, we had to walk in circumferences for school. We had to do it, Skip. It's just what it was.
Mm.
That's what it is. So that's Shannon Sharp. And I'm going to get my restitution because I was flat Will Smith ass. Did you hear what Chris Rock had to say? Just off topic. We're going to move on to our next topic. But
No, I didn't hear it.
I'm not a victim. I shook that shit off.
Mm.
He said, I took that shit off. It was nothing. Anyone who says words hurt has never been punched in the face. Rock referred to Smith as Suge Smith, a possible reference to the currently incarcerated Death Row Records CEO Suge Knight. It ain't a possible reference, it is a reference. We know exactly who he's talking about when you say Suge. It ain't Sugar Ray Leonard. Rock said, I'm not a victim, motherfucker. Before joking, he shook that shit off and returned to work. Yeah, that shit hurt, motherfucker. But I shook that shit off and went to work the next day. I don't go to the hospital for a paper cut. What do you think of Rock's comment, Sean? Just shaking it off like it was nothing.
Well, I guess he wants to just move on, and the whole thing is he wants to focus on his next job. But he is right; he wasn't a victim of anything. I mean, your Will Smith just basically was one of these beta males who was looking to try to be a hero to Jada Pinkett, and he's just going out here and not letting this phase him. And that's what a man of character does. He doesn't let stuff like that phase him. I've been in Chris Rock's situation a dozen times in junior high dealing with these kind of guys, and you just have to shake it off and keep it moving because if you don't shake it off, what's going to happen is the other guy is going to get all the power in the situation, and they're going to go out here and try to keep things going and keep the drama going. And I think it's good character to do, again, just shut it down and keep it moving, because otherwise people will use this to try to put a lot of rifts in the black community. And your Chris Rock is just doing the right thing, just saying, look, okay, yeah, it happened, but I'm just going to keep it moving. I'm not going to allow people to get this into a back and forth. And I'm just going to go out here and take the high road the way a man is supposed to take the high road.
Yeah, but I would have shit. The hell with that. I'd take some money from Will Smith. Fuck. Or have him do Pootie Tang too, and you get top billing. I mean, he was a victim because this was an assault and battery. I get that he just wants to move on. And truth be told, they didn't need him to press charges. It was done in the presence of everybody else, and it was on live television. So all the police could do, like I'll put it this way: I didn't believe Will Packer when he said that they asked him, "Did we want to arrest Will Smith?" Because he said, "Well, the time constraints, we couldn't do that." The police didn't have to ask him. If you commit a crime in front of the police or you do something, they can just take you. I get it, but Will Smith has a standing in Hollywood, and by the way, he's going to get $35 million for this emancipation project that he had been working on for Apple.
Yeah, well, Apple didn't want to lose any money. That's why they let it go. Apple was go out to hemorrhage a bunch of money if this project didn't get through.
Well, I mean, but here's my thing: they would have, if the project was already completed, though, Shawn. So
yeah, it was completed.
They had to have already paid him.
Yeah, but the whole thing is it was sitting in the can, so they had to give him the money.
But they made it sound like he made $35 million afterwards. Is the point I'm getting? Like,
yeah.
I mean, how much was the budget for it? Because I mean, if it's Will Smith, obviously he's going to take at least 20 million to start his project. He's arguably the highest paid actor in the world, one of the highest paid actors. Obviously, you got to count Tom Cruise. You got to count Denzel. I don't know if Denzel gets the amount that those guys get, but Samuel L. Jackson's for sure, because his box office record, I think he's the highest grossing actor of all time, or at least one of them. He's traded back and forth, with Harrison Ford and the guy who did Freddy from Scooby-Doo, Frank Welker, actually is one of the highest because he does all the sound effects in different movies. So I'm just sharing that with y'all. I know you didn't ask.
Yeah.
So hit that like, share, and subscribe button, ladies and gentlemen. So the next thing I want to talk about, Unsunken One says monetary compensation is in Florida. She wanted, I heard that Jada wanted Chris Rock to come on the show.
I wouldn't do that. She would just emasculate him.
Chris told her, fuck off. I ain't doing that bullshit. I'm not doing that. All right. So our next topic, let's talk about this then. Now, I think you had a video on this. Am I not mistaken, Shawn?
Let me see what this. Yeah, I did a whole video on it.
Well, I got to do a video on it myself. I actually was going to do one earlier, but time constraints forbid. But Vince McMahon had announced his retirement from the WWE. Now, I don't know whether you like wrestling or not. This was a blow, I guess, to the entire wrestling community. They did not expect this because they thought Vince McMahon would die before he gave up, retiring from WWE's CEO. Now, he stepped down as CEO earlier and gave as the creative control. He gave up creative control a few weeks ago before his announcement of his retirement. And then on July 22nd, which was just this past Friday, he wrote this tweet saying, quote, "At 77, time for me to retire. Thank you, WWE Universe." then, now, forever together. WWE thankful. Now, regardless of what you feel about the sport of professional wrestling or sports entertainment, as it's really now known, Vince McMahon and the WWF, as I knew it, I don't really go for this WWE, Sean. I don't know about you. I go with WWF anytime. Is WWF shaped the childhood of many of your 80s and 90s babies that are here today. Uh, he is responsible for WrestleMania, the Hulk Hogan's, the Andre the Giant match, the Macho Man Randy Savage, Ultimate Warrior, Bret Hitman Hart, Mr. Perfect, The Undertaker, The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin in the Attitude Era, the New Generation with Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon and Diesel, all of those, he was a part of that. And let's not forget the Monday Night Wars that happened during the Attitude Era with Mankind, The Rock, Undertaker, Stone Cold Steve Austin, uh, the New Age Outlaws, D-Generation X. He was a part of that. And I can never forget that. Now, why he's stepping down, he's saying that it's time for him to retire, but many people feel otherwise because recently it had come out, although I had heard about this before, there was a report that came out, I believe, in the Wall Street Journal that in the past 16 years, that the WWE had paid more than $12 million to quiet McMahon's alleged sexual misconduct and infidelity allegations. Four female employees of the WWE who no longer work there received payments and signed, obviously, some non disclosure agreements regarding their relationship with the 76-year-old after signing with the 76-year-old McMahon. Three of the cases regarding McMahon's allegations released in the report Friday were previously not publicly known. One woman, a former wrestler, said that McMahon coerced her into giving him oral sex and then demoted her and ultimately declined to renew her contract in 2005 after she further resisted her sexual encounters with him. She agreed to a $7.5 million pact in 2018 per the report when she and her lawyer approached the CEO, and in return, she stayed silent about the incident. Now, that's just one. I don't know about you, Sean, and I'm sure you have. I had always heard stuff about, I had heard similar stories about Vince McMahon. Uh, I mean, even messing with Sable. Because remember, Sable is Brock Lesnar's uh, wife. And I remembered when she was with the WWF, I think something had happened with her and him, and she stepped down. And remember, there was a storyline where she was his mistress. And she actually had been with the WWE on different times. Uh, am I wrong about that? You remember something hearing about that?
Yeah, I remember hearing something about that.
Yeah. Yeah. I liked Sable as a kid. I'm gonna be real with y'all. A former manager also said that McMahon initiated a sexual relationship with her after working with him for 10 years. In 2006, they agreed to a $1 million payout for her to stay quiet. There was also a 2019 incident where a paralegal had an affair with McMahon. A spokesperson for McMahon called the relationship consensual. They agreed to a $3 million deal for her to stay silent about the situation. It was also uncovered that former WWE executive John Laurinaitis reportedly had an affair with the same paralegal. Additionally, there was an email that was sent out stating that the woman was hired on a $100,000 salary, but after a sexual relationship began between the employee and McMahon, he increased it to $200,000. Additionally, the email reportedly said the former WWE paralegal was given to Laurinaitis like a toy. So his daughter, Stephanie McMahon Helmsley, as I know her, is now is going to assume the role of interim CEO. Triple H is going to be the head of, I think, creative development. Am I right, Shawn?
Yeah. Yeah, Triple H is going to be running creative, and Stephanie McMahon is going to run
Yeah,
the day to day.
it's going to suck.
So this really opens up WWE creatively because they were in a bit of a rut with Vince McMahon running it, and it makes it where we're going to see something similar to NXT, hopefully, with Triple H in creative control. And NXT was doing very well under Triple H until Vince took it over, and it's WWE has been a mess. But we
They got to go
cannot,
back to the WWF.
yeah, we go back to the WWF because World Wildlife Fund went out here and sued Vince McMahon, and then that didn't really help the World Wildlife Fund because nobody cares about them.
No, nobody does. Nobody even heard of it.
Yeah, they sued talking about trademarks and stuff. So Vince changed the name, and they still nobody cares about the World Wildlife Fund.
No, nobody
So
cares. But well, honestly, I haven't even watched wrestling, even with Stephanie McMahon and uh, Triple H running stuff.
well, they just started this week. So
They started this week, but they were
yeah,
really But I mean, they were really taking running stuff. I know Vince was still there,
yeah.
but even with the stuff that they've had, I wasn't really. It was something that I never caught up on, to be quite honest. So, what's your thoughts on this with Vince McMahon leaving? You think it's a go ahead.
Well, I was really saddened to hear about your Vince McMahon ending in his career in such an ignominious fashion, but you can't really take away what Vince McMahon contributed to American history when he went out here and decided to take wrestling national. That's always going to be Vince McMahon's legacy and his contribution to professional wrestling was the fact that he took it from the regional markets that were all across the country, and he turned it into a national phenomenon and then a global phenomenon. Your Vince McMahon was the one who created what we know as modern wrestling today, back in the 80s when he created the era of rock and wrestling and changed professional wrestlers into superstars. So your Vince McMahon back in 1984, he created the concept of what we know as professional wrestling today with the start of the rock and wrestling era when Hulk Hogan defeated the Iron Sheik and won the World Wrestling Federation Championship. And once he won that World Wrestling Federation Championship, Hulk Hogan became a international superstar and he
Pop
became
culture icon. Yeah.
an icon for a generation. And this, again, paved the way for what we know as modern wrestling and other companies like Ted Turner's World Championship Wrestling and your Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. They all managed to get a little bit of momentum and shine, all because Vince McMahon opened the market. Now, Vince McMahon also, in addition to taking wrestling global and creating the superstar, he also created the product that basically took cable television to the next level, which was pay per view. WrestleMania basically was the thing that made cable TV get to the next level because people, yes, they have cable pay per view shows like adult entertainment out there, but it was WrestleMania that made it where this was something everybody had to go out and see because kids were begging their parents to see WrestleMania and they would pay to see WrestleMania. And that opened up the entire pay per view market, which created a new revenue stream. So your Vince McMahon was an innovator way back in the 80s. And I remember reading an article about him in the late 80s in GQ magazine, and they were talking about how much of an influence he had on the wrestling business back then. But as we look at him throughout history, starting with the rock and wrestling era, the new generation era, which was where your Hulk Hogan and all these people had left, and then we had to create new stars like your Ringmaster and your Hart Foundation and guys like Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon. They were
Diesel.
Diesel, yeah. And then we went in from there to the Attitude Era, where we got Stone Cold, The Rock, Mankind. We got the New Age Outlaws, Triple H. We got so many stars, and we got so many great matches like Undertaker versus Mankind in the Hell in a Cell, which I consider to be one of the defining moments of World Wrestling Federation, next to your Hogan winning the belt, Hogan slamming Andre the Giant in WrestleMania 3, Ultimate Warrior winning the title. These were defining moments as related not only to the world of wrestling, but they were a major part of American history. And as we went from the 20th century to the 21st century, we got into the ruthless aggression era. And that era was where we got guys like your Kurt Angles, your Booker T's, and then your Eddie Guerreros, John Cena's, and Brock Lesnar's, who went on to become the superstars of the 21st century, along with guys like Edge. And we saw for three generations, we've seen WWF become a part of American kids' childhood. And I grew up with WWF. I grew up and watching WWF go out here and go from, again, something that was on WWF Superstars and syndication to becoming a part of cable TV's schedule. And again, we've seen Vince McMahon basically transform American culture. And I was saddened again to hear about all of these scandals. But in the wrestling business, this has been going on for years. People have had side pieces, people have had affairs, and it's gone on for years. And the sad part is that all of this stuff, sordid stuff, came out from underground and now has been reported in mainstream. And it led to the end of Vince McMahon's era of wrestling. And Vince, will, again, while he went out in an ignominious fashion due to these scandals, you cannot say that he did not have an impact on the business, because he transformed the business.
But he transformed the business, and remember, he inherited it was called the WWF,
Yeah,
from his father, Vince McMahon Sr. And he went around, and if you watch it, and the wrestlers were not really paid a great deal of money,
no,
even in the '80s boom. I mean, I read King Kong Bundy, for instance, when he wrestled Hulk Hogan, he got $50,000 out of it, which is a lot of money. But Hogan was making, because he was the top draw, he was making $2 million. You know, he got 2 million for WrestleMania 2. And I'm sure for WrestleMania 3, if you have 98,000 fans in that Pontiac Silverdome up in Detroit, I'm pretty sure they made, and that was really when wrestling peaked, uh, when he did WrestleMania. You know, I love the '80s WrestleMania was really the best ones. The 93,173 fans in the Pontiac Silverdome. That was huge.
yeah,
WrestleMania 3.
yeah. WrestleMania 3 was a major part of every child's history. I mean, it was one of the greatest moments of 1980. I remember being 13 years old in 1987, and my brother gave me a VHS tape of it. And again, this was an event for every child's life. I mean, that Hulk Hogan Andre the Giant match is one of the defining moments of any Gen Xer's childhood. And that moment was one of the biggest moments. And if you saw it on the pay-per-view, or if you were lucky enough to see it live, that
Right.
was a great moment in history. I mean, I was a
Remember,
teenager and I saw it.
Sean, you remember even in the video game,
Yeah,
Hulk Hogan is the original WrestleMania video game. Hulk Hogan for Nintendo. Hulk Hogan could only slam Andre, nobody else.
yeah. Because it was the greatest moment in wrestling history until Undertaker threw Mankind off the top of the cage in Hell in a Cell.
Well, I thought, for me, one of my favorite memories, yeah, that was a big one. I remember even when Stone Cold uh, was passed out when Bret Hart put him in the sharpshooter and he's bleeding
Yeah,
profusely. Or when he won the world title from Shawn Michaels, I remember those. Even the ones with Rock had some great matches.
yeah,
But yeah, the one with Undertaker and Mankind, And really, I don't think Mick Foley gets a lot of credit because that was really. I mean, I'm not saying the Undertaker wasn't great in that; he was, but Mick Foley put his body on the line, literally his life, for that. You know, and hearing Jr. saying "Stop the damn match" because
Yep.
he really thought he died. He thought he
Yeah.
was. I mean, he could have. He was looked like he was critically injured, but he kept going. And then when the image of Mankind with the toot in his nose.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of that you would have thought Mankind. I would have thought Mankind should have beaten Undertaker, but they were giving Taker the big push.
Yeah.
But you know what happened is that uh, as a result of that, because he was actually, if I remember correctly, the heel,
Yeah.
but he ended up becoming the fan favorite. I
Yeah.
think after that match, huh?
Yes, all because of that one moment in the match.
They were chanting his name. I remember the toot in the nose. This was it. And I think reportedly after the match, Vince McMahon told him he thanked him, but don't do that again. Yeah, but those memories will never. Ravishing Rick Rude. Oh gosh, yeah, Mr. Perfect,
Yep.
the perfect play. Ric Flair was, yeah, I remember Ric Flair, but Ric Flair didn't stay that long.
No.
In the early 90s, he only had, I think, he only stayed like 2 years.
He stayed 2 years and he went back to WCW.
Right. And I think he was making, I mean, he made nice money over at the WWE, but he just felt, I guess, he would do better with working with WCW. And let's not forget with WCW, the angle that they did with the New World Order.
Yeah. That's what made Vince go out here and create the Attitude Era.
Right, because they
Because
were getting their ass kicked by WCW.
they were falling apart in the ratings when the NWO came along, and then Vince came out with the Attitude Era, and it just took it to another level, took wrestling to another level.
Yeah.
And now that we got Triple H and going head to head with AEW, it's going to look like we're going to go to another level as related to wrestling. So I really am hoping that Triple H can capitalize and really start cultivating and developing stars, because everything is here for WWE to pick up and really, really show us how fantastic wrestling can be. I mean, again, Vince is retired, but I believe the wrestling business is in good shape in Triple H's hands based on what I saw in NXT. And I'm sad again to see Vince go out this way. I wanted to see him
Well, what do
retire.
you think of the allegations?
Yeah, but I wanted to see him retire with dignity. But it's sad to see him go out with this whole Me Too thing. And again, these Me Too types, they just keep really pushing stuff like this, and they keep taking down prominent men. So,
But
guys, you got to watch your.
Cosby treatment.
Yeah, the same thing that they did to Bill Cosby. So, guys, you got to watch out for yourself, as related to these women, because they look to take you out and get a payday, and you have to really look out for yourself out here. I have to go take care of some business. I'll be right back.
Yeah, I don't think he's gonna get the Cosby treatment. He's not getting that. All right. When Sean says he's gonna take care of business, you know what that means. Tinkle tinkle. Uh by the way, ladies and gentlemen, if you're in the New Orleans area, I know my man DeAndre Mobley, who lives here in Louisiana. We still got some tickets available for the Comedy Night Explosion. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. The Comedy Night Explosion is coming up. The Comedy Night Explosion, ladies and gentlemen. You can get your tickets on Eventbrite right now. Saturday is the night from 7 to 9 p.m. We're gonna have talented comedians, the likes of Stu Boo. We also have Troy Duchesne, Brandon Haynes, Dean of Orleans,
Okay, I'm back.
Nature Boy. And the headliner, of course, is one and only Mr. Kerry B. That's right. You don't want to miss this. This is this Saturday coming up from 7 to 9 p.m. at the Well. Uh, let's see here. Yeah, it's going to be great, ladies and gentlemen. So I see you're back, Shawn. But
Yeah, I'm
I
back.
don't think, yeah, but he won't get the Cosby treatment. Like Cosby went, I mean, they did it full time with black men where you're going to go to prison for this stuff. But I see your point. You're just talking about how they're going after prominent men in general. But I mean, Vince McMahon realistically is not going to prison unless they come up with some stuff with if he did something like Weinstein, who just basically to me, I think he stepped on the wrong people's shoes.
Yeah.
But we're gonna go ahead. I got one more topic we're gonna talk about. Hit that like, share, and subscribe button, ladies and gentlemen. Also donate to the Cash App and the PayPal. We're going to talk about our final topic. And y'all, of course, buy Shawn James's book, Stop Simping in Cyberspace. Support our brother. He needs some book sales so he can go on vacation. And, of course, support me because I have The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania versus William H. Cosby Jr. on Kindle. It's an outstanding book. I've heard some people who've come in, like Lindell, who said that he is enjoying the read as well as Computer Robots. I don't know how far Computer Robots has gotten with it. I don't even know. Is Computer Robots here? Yeah, he's here. He's just not commenting. Uh, I want to know how far he's gotten so far with it. But last thing I want to talk about, Shawn, is how do we combat cultural appropriation? Now, uh, this was brought to my attention about a week ago. I can't play all of it because they're going to issue a copyright strike if you play music because it's copywritten. But this Rachel Dolezal rapper out of it looks like Atlanta, calling herself light skinned, did this rap, uh, who's been dubbed as Rachel Dolezal's daughter. In the lyrics for the song, the white Atlanta rapper says, "I'm a light skinned girl, but she's clearly a white woman with a tan, and such people have accused her of cultural appropriation." So let me just play a little bit.
I just enforce them, I don't make the rules. Say you from my hood, but you must be confused. Color Park is not Atlanta. Lithonia is not Atlanta. Clayco is not Atlanta. Decatur is not Atlanta. Gwinnett is not Atlanta.
All right. Iggy Azalea Jr. here. I don't even know who this rapper is. They didn't even have her name. But I wanted to talk about cultural appropriation. We don't own, as I look at it, Shawn, we don't own a lot of stuff anymore as we did in the 60s and 70s. I watched, and I got to say, I took inspiration. Shout out to Judge Joe Brown and Dana because they talked about this, but I wanted to talk about it too. And they were talking about stuff, and Dana was even asking the judge about, because he's very critical of hip hop. Well, you guys don't own this stuff. You guys didn't have shit either because you don't own it no more. We look at the major record companies, for instance, Motown Records, which at one time was the most profitable black business in America in the 60s and beyond, and in the 80s. Barry Gordy sells it to Polygram. Soul Train, Don Cornelius sells it to Time Life. Ebony is no longer owned by the Johnson family; it's owned by Chase. Same thing with Essence. Same, I can go on. Although Essence, yes, eventually they did become black owned again. BET, obviously. Uh, Bob Johnson sells it. He tries to get into the airline industry. That didn't work. It's run by Viacom. You see what's happening now. What do you think, though, Shawn? How do we stop cultural appropriation and combat it, because we get mad at stuff like this. But let's even take, and I talked about all the other record companies. Def Jam itself, Russell Simmons co-starred, co-founded Def Jam. That's no longer owned by Russell Simmons. What's happened where black people, we have something, but then we decide to get rid of it? Why?
Well,
Yeah, why can't we?
well, the problem is that most black people are obsessed with white validation and white approval. And we value social currency more than building economic wealth. So whenever we get something of value, we want to trade it for social currency. And this is why our culture winds up getting sold to the highest bidder. The big problem with cultural appropriation is that black people are always willing to sell their culture in order to get brownie points with whites and non-blacks. And because we're looking to get brownie points with whites and non-blacks, what happens is whenever we get something that becomes popular in our community, we want to go out here and give it to these whites and non-blacks. And sometimes we do this again, not understanding the value of what we've contributed to the world. Now, we just talked about Vince McMahon and his contributions to the world of wrestling, and he wasn't looking to go out here and give away his vision for wrestling. No, he sold his vision for wrestling and kept the business for himself. Yes, he sold it to the customer as a product, and he kept the business for himself. Unfortunately, those in the rap and hip hop community, they wanted to get social currency and become in with white folks. And instead of selling the product of rap music and keeping the business, they sell the business to your whites in Hollywood. And what happens is once you sell the business, you wind up having them take control over the narrative of the business. As a guy who grew up with rap and hip hop back in the 80s, I remember when black men controlled rap and hip hop, and the images and messages were about empowering and uplifting black people. Unfortunately, many of the black people producing the music didn't heed many of the messages that they put in the music, and they had low self esteem. So they wanted to get in with white folks, and once they got in with white folks, they sold what they had in order to get in with the white folks. And sadly, once they got in with the white folks, they took our music, they took our culture, and they made it their own. And they made it their own because we sold it off and they sold us out. And that's the big problem here. How do we stop the cultural appropriation? One, we have to value what we have, and we have to value what we have and understand that it has a value to this country, it has a value to this culture. And two, we have to go out here and understand that we need to sell the product, not sell the business. Because once you sell the business, you sell the ability to tell the stories and you sell the culture out. And that's what happens with rap music. And that's what happens with many black people because they think to come up, you need to get validated by whites. But no, you don't. The way you come up is by keeping your product because, again, Vince McMahon kept his business and he became a worldwide phenomenon. And we could do the same thing, but we have to learn to value what's ours and we have to learn to keep what's ours and not give it away so that we can get in with the white folks because the white folks, once they get what's yours, they're going to change it up. And that's how we wind up with this Rachel Dolezal, light skinned rapper, and these caricatures who don't understand the music, who don't understand the history of the music, and don't understand the culture of the music. Now, I'll go into another group that understands its value, and that is the goth subculture. And people in the goth subculture, they go out here and they protect their culture. And this is a small group of people from all over the world. While people know about their culture, they protect the foundations of their culture with the music. They protect their institutions, and they do this by saying, "Okay, we have a standard for how things are," and this is what Black people need to understand in order to avoid cultural appropriation. Because in the goth community, they are people who try to appropriate their culture, but they shut them down almost immediately and call them out and let them know this person isn't a part of our scene, and these people don't meet our standard. So Black people, we really have to get ourselves together as related to our mind, and we have to get our minds right, because the way you stop cultural appropriation, again, is to get your head straight, protect your institutions, protect your assets, and if you're going to go out here and entertain, you're selling the product. You never sell your business.
Well, let me say this, Sean, too. I want to point this out to everybody. I want everybody to look at this. This is Def Jam Records, Def Jam Recordings, and you can see uh, Universal Music Group. So that's the parent company that owns it. Universal Music Group Worldwide. EMI is its distributor, as is Universal Music does the reissues, and it varies, but predominantly hip hop and R&B, right? So
Yeah.
Universal Music Group has been around. It's a Dutch American multinational music corporation. It's been around, so it has its roots from the 1930s, because remember, it was Decca Records, then MCA Records, then MCA Music. MCA was a part of Universal. That's actually what it was called. Its actual name was MCA Universal. Remember,
Yeah.
it's a while back. So, like MCA Universal, they had the home movies, the studios like Back to the Future, and so forth. So, let's look at Motown. Now, I'm going through all of this. Now, Motown, you see here, co-founded by Berry Gordy Jr. as Tamla Records on June 7, 1958. Motown has been obviously around for over 60 years. And it was an independent company until MCA Records, which is now part of which is what now, Sean? Universal Music Group.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. They're all bought off.
Then Polygram purchased the label from MCA in 1993, followed by MCA's successor, Universal Music Group, that acquired Polygram. Its music publishing was Joe Beth. It was named after Berry Gordy's first three children. And the songwriters that they had, Holland Dozier and Holland, Norman Whitfield and Barrett Strong, Smokey Robinson, Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder, all those guys that wrote songs, their publishing was tied to that. And at one point, I think Berry Gordy after he sold Motown, he still owned the publishing and wanted to sell it to Michael Jackson. And unfortunately, he decided not to do it, but it would have been great to keep in, not only Black hands, but also a family's hands, because Michael was part of the Motown family, right?
Yeah.
So it was the most successful soul music label with a net worth of $61 million. And during the 1960s, Motown achieved 79 records in the top 10 of the Billboard Hot 100 between 1960 and 1969. The Motown sound, the Funk Brothers, all of that. Now let's look at Soul Train. Hold on, I'm pulling all of this up. I'm bringing receipts. Now, remember in the 1970s, Sean, Soul Train, when it came on and it was in syndication, Don Cornelius started it in Chicago, just like Berry Gordy started Motown in Detroit. Something happened around that time too. Motown moved to Los Angeles in the early 70s. And Berry Gordy wanted to be into film production. He wanted to make Diana Ross a superstar, remember?
Yeah.
And Soul Train also moved out to Los Angeles as well. So with Don Cornelius in Soul Train and Berry Gordy in Motown, a lot of those artists appeared on this show, and it was a match made in heaven, right?
Yep.
Now, as of now, the owners, it says right here, as of 2016, the rights to the Soul Train brand, library, and associated events, such as cruises and annual award show, The Soul Train Music Awards are now under the ownership of Paramount Global through BET Networks. Paramount Global. And who owns Paramount Global?
Viacom.
Jews. Well, not white Jewish people. Sherry Redstone, her father is Sumner Redstone. Now, remember, if you remember in 2020, when Nick Cannon got in trouble, when he did that interview with Professor Griff, he had to apologize to Sherry Redstone because his show Wild 'N Out got canceled. And to bring Wild 'N Out back, he had to apologize to her. So Sherry Redstone owns Soul.
Okay, looks like technical difficulties.
Sorry. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, I had backed up. I said Sherry Redstone owns Soul Train. Time magazine says she's the list of 100 most influential people in the world. Let's see somebody else. So, and of course, Don Cornelius got sick. But this was the most Soul Train at one point had the most episodes, syndicated episodes in television history. It was the most syndicated program in U.S. history, television history. It was surpassed by Entertainment Tonight and then Wheel of Fortune. Do you think this show, if they wanted to, they're not going to do it, but reportedly I heard Nick Cannon wanted to bring the show back. Do you think this show could come back nowadays?
I don't trust the show that would be made by Paramount because it'll be used to push anti-black stereotypes and anti-black racism. It wouldn't have a heart that John Cornelius's Soul Train would have.
But Don Cornelius doesn't have a say. He's not here anymore.
I know he's not here anymore, and that's why I wouldn't support it, because it would be a clown show. Because whenever corporate gets a hold of our culture, what happens is they breathe brand new life into old stereotypes.
Yeah, this is Don Cornelius here. He was not a fan of hip hop, by the way. What other?
I know. He was an R&B guy.
Yeah, he didn't like hip hop. He was scared by Public Enemy. Ebony Magazine, John Johnson Publishing Company, defunct as of April of 2019. Its revenue was estimated to be $90 million, but who owns Ebony now?
Well, Ebony is owned by, I think, somebody. I don't know. It's a white corporation. All of our media is in somebody else's hands. It's not good.
Well, remember that woman who was on the Cosby hit piece? She ran Ebony into the ground.
Yeah.
As well.
She had no vision.
It went bankrupt, and a man by the name of Junior Bridgman purchased it in 2020.
Sad, so much of our media is in other people's hands. And they can take our images and our stories and manipulate them to fit whatever narrative they want.
Ulysses Lee Bridgman has a net worth of $600 million. So he's a black man, it looks like. But remember, J.P. Morgan Chase at one point owned Ebony. You have to know your value. That's the point of all of this that I'm showing, ladies and gentlemen. John Johnson created Jet. He had Ebony. Those magazines meant something. And they started out, obviously, as a family business, just like Motown did, just like Soul Train and others. Soul Train used to have Afro Sheen commercials. They worked with Johnson & Johnson. and they pushed this book and they pushed it, but there was positive imaging in Soul Train. There was positive images in Ebony. Essence is the same thing as well at one time. And remember, that was sold to whites. So the point is,
Yeah.
what do we do to protect cultural appropriation? Well, number one, you build something, but you got to know your value. One of the things I realized, you got to know your value. You know, it's not just, did you know that in the 1960s, and this is not for anybody, but Rod Serling, he was the man that created the Twilight Zone. He sold his syndication rights to the Twilight Zone, all of his rights to the Twilight Zone for, I believe it was $200,000. The Twilight Zone in syndication is worth $600 million. Rod
Yeah.
Serling's wife never forgave him because of that. Because had he kept it and the syndication of the show, you know,
You could have got $100,000 from one channel.
well, forget that. But if they wanted the rights to air it, they had to talk with him, and he would have. They would be multimillionaires. Of course,
Yeah.
I'm sure they were still millionaires, but you sold it for this little amount. And as a result of that, CBS or whoever owns the rights to it, he sold it for $285,000, but he relinquished his royalty rights.
I would have never did that.
He never valued his own show. 150. Look at that. Just read it there. 100. He sold it to CBS for $285,000, and then they put it in syndication. It's worth over $500 million.
I would have kept my royalties because that's how you get paid later on. That's your revenue stream.
Right.
And
And he did do shows like The Night Gallery. I think he did do some rewrites for Planet of the Apes, but it wasn't the same.
wasn't the same. That was a wealth building asset.
Right. It's just like when the Beach Boys, when their father sold his publishing, he sold the Beach Boys publishing for like $700,000. The Beach Boys music is, the value of that is priceless, literally, because they're pop culture icons. Sam Cooke's wife, yeah, she sold his music royalties for $150,000, his publishing. Yeah, it's a lot of money now, but think of the future then when you have children and they want money. And that's another problem. These adults, our elders, we got to call out our elders. They kept thinking for themselves and not for the future generations when they sold these companies. I don't know. You know, Berry Gordy is still a wealthy man. And yeah, when he passes on, I'm sure will leave money for his kids. But think of what would have happened. Yeah, the Beach Boys' father sold their publishing for like $700,000. Exactly. They've been fighting. That's why, if you probably haven't paid attention to this, but Mike Love and Brian Wilson, they've been suing each other over songwriting royalties because they finally got the rights to the publishing back. And some of the songs Mike Love was claiming he wasn't credited on. So he's missing a lot of income. Think of the song like Little Saint Nick, for instance. That's played every Christmas. That's priceless. That's a license to print money. The Twilight Zone is a license to print money. Gene Roddenberry never sold Star Trek, I don't think.
No, I don't think he did.
I think he got it when he died.
Yeah. I think Viacom got it when he passed away, but ever since with Next Generation, he was hands-on.
Yes, he was.
Very hands-on. He's very active.
Desi Liu, well, here it was. The first franchise owner was Desi Liu. Desi Liu was the one who, actually it says right here, I think we got to stand corrected, Sean. Gene Roddenberry lost all rights entitled to his creation, save for the created by credit, the moment he sold Star Trek to Desi Lu in 1964. And Lucille Ball, she greenlit. Remember this too, and this is how smart Lucy and Desi were. Desi, when they did "I Love Lucy," do you know that they agreed to do it for a lesser salary, but they kept all the negatives to the show, which means when they created syndication, he could put the reruns in syndication and make millions from it.
Yeah.
Which is what Desi did. But yeah, you see here, he sold his rights, but yeah, he was hands-on in it and a lot of those guys didn't get, the actors were not paid a lot of money when they started Star Trek.
Yeah.
It only got popular when it got into syndication. Just like the Three Stooges. The Three Stooges weren't big when they started. They got bigger subsequently when they became old men.
Yeah, when it went into syndication.
When the shorts were sold to television, the kids saw them. I mean, Curly and Shemp were already dead. Who owns the rights to the Beach Boys music? I think they started to get the rights back, if I'm not mistaken. I think they finally got it back, some of the rights to it. But yeah, Viacom. Oh, look who owns it, Sean. Viacom CBS.
Yep. They own everything.
Paramount. Someone asked, so let's look at it though. The key is ownership too. Even I was reading Sylvester Stallone doesn't even own Rocky. There's a difference between creating something and owning it. You can create something, but you better make sure you hold on and own it.
Yep. That's why I try to do with the SJS Direct Imprint, because I understand ownership is very important. If you don't own anything, then you can't have nothing to build wealth with. They get rich at your expense and at the hands, and they take your IP and then they butcher it.
So here's the answer to your question, Danielle. Irvin Azov's iconic artist groups acquired the controlling stake in the Beach Boys' intellectual property, including sound recordings, brands, select musical compositions, and memorabilia. Although they say here that much of the band's evergreen 1960s era catalog remains owned by Universal Music Group. Universal owning all of this shit. Like Sony ATV is the largest music publishing company in the world. They own, I think it's Sony, Universal, and Cobalt, which I think Warner Brothers, I think it's those four. Paul McCartney, I think, has Cobalt. Yeah, just look right there. Only Shatner and Nimoy made any money in Star Trek. Michelle Nichols was hired on a handshake and not a contract in the original series. Well, no, even Shatner even talked about how he didn't make a lot of money on Star Trek. He was broke really by the time Star Trek was in syndication, DJ.
He was living in his truck when and it wasn't until Star Trek the movie that he started making money.
He started when they wanted to bring him back to make the movie is when he made the deal. Just like Larry Hagman, who played JR on Dallas. He made his money really from anything in Hollywood and on that show was after the Who Shot JR episode in 1980, March of 1980, and he made a deal with CBS and people at Dallas that, hey, I want a percentage of this, I want creative control, I want the images of JR, I want a percentage of any sales from that, because he knew the show was going to be big when the season 4 premiere came up and you found out who shot it. So when that episode aired, I think it was the highest aired episode of all time, one of the highest in TV history, still ranked among the top 10. Uh, yeah, I heard Byron bought BNC.
Yeah. So it's still going to be the whack news channel or the bootleg news channel.
You said
Byron about to lose a bunch of money.
they made more money than Nichelle. Well, you also got to remember too, Nichelle was a supporting actress. She was also not the main star. The main stars, if you always saw in Star Trek, was William Shatner, Leonard Nimoy, and DeForest Kelly. Yeah, I saw what happened with Ghost from Power. He didn't make a lot of money from it. He said, "Know your worth, ladies and gentlemen, and pass it on to future generations. Also, have a will. Make sure your shit when you pass on goes and stays with your family, so they don't run it in the ground." She was also Gene Roddenberry's side piece.
Yeah.
That was his girlfriend. Gorgeous woman, yeah. I remember she did a blaxploitation movie, Truck Turner.
Yeah.
Yeah,
She was acting in a way that Starfleet officers don't act.
yeah.
Conduct unbecoming a Starfleet officer.
Tyree is acting surprised like he didn't know. Yeah, Nichelle Nichols, she was the villain in the movie. Hold on. Think I get a copyright? Did they care about copyright strikes for blaxploitations?
I don't know.
Oh, well, let me just show the picture. But this was Nichelle Nichols, and I don't know what the name. She was a female pimp. This is her. Can y'all see? Hold on.
Yeah. I've
Woo!
seen Truck Turner a couple of times.
Oh, Nichelle Nichols. She's gorgeous.
Yeah, she was fine.
Mm-hmm. That's her and Isaac Hayes. Wonder if she got some hot butter soul.
Her son played in the Learning Tree. His new.
Yeah. They say her son was abusive to her as she has Alzheimer's, I think, now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's sad. Yeah, she's cute. Yeah, she's still alive. They showed her where she met the new Yahora.
Yeah.
I think this is her here. Let's see how she looks. Yeah, she's still a gorgeous lady. I think that's her son there. And that's George Takai. And then, yeah, Dr. King was a Trekkie. He convinced her to stay on the show. Let's see if y'all remember the Star Trek theme song. Sorry. All right. Sean is just looking at me. What
Yeah,
is
I'm just thinking about it. I mean, yeah, theme song was a major part of my adolescence. And I was watching that in Star Trek: The Next Generation. Really was watching more Star Trek: The Next Generation. Didn't really get into the original series until after Next Generation went ended, 1992 or so.
think
I
it
remember
ended in '93. I remember it because it came out in 1987.
came out 87.
I
Yeah,
remember.
I would catch it on Channel 11 at 7 o'clock on Saturdays. I think that's when it came on.
It used to come on, I think, Fox on my channel late at night on Saturdays.
Yeah,
And sometimes, yeah, Captain Luke Picard,
Captain Jean-Luc Picard.
Space, the Final Frontier. Worf, I remember him. You know what Paul Mooney said about this, and he said this about Star Trek. Whoopi Goldberg looks like she came on a Aunt Jemima box. Look what is wrong with this stuff. Black people have no future. He's like, one Negro's blind, the other one looks like his mom fucked a turtle. Just Wolf. Ugh. Christopher Lloyd was in an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation.
A lot of stars came on there.
He played Wolf's son. Remember?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Spock. Lasers on Sponge. Remember the episode where they had a puppet? They met an alien life form. It was a midget operating the puppet. Yeah, that was funny. Lieutenant Wolf. Yeah, a lot of people in this. LeVar Burton, Brent Spiner. Yeah, I remember him. He was in Night Court actually.
That's where he got his start.
Yeah, he played the country the Wheelers. That was funny. All right. Have you watched? Just curious. Have you watched the latest Star Trek with Picard?
No, I haven't watched it. It's just not my cup of tea.
I've heard William Shatner even said Gene Roddenberry would roll in his grave if he saw.
I have to agree with with William Shatner on that. The new Star Treks, they're just too far left. They don't understand the subtleties of a Gene Roddenberry and he was making social commentary. He would make his commentary between the lines as related to the story. He wasn't as, blunt as these far leftists are that currently have done Star Trek. They don't understand anything about nuance. I mean, I've watched a lot of Gene Roddenberry's work from I think he did some Twilight Zones. I know he did some Half Gun Will Travels, and
Roddenberry?
Yeah, Gene Roddenberry wrote
a show called. He created a show on NBC called The Lieutenant that was about the Marine Corps, and in actuality, Nichelle Nichols guest starred in an episode with her. It was her, Dennis Hopper, and I can't think of the actor, but she played the fiance of the black private who was having an issue with Dennis Hopper's character, who was a racist. Yeah. And that show didn't last long, but Gene Roddenberry was big on diversity and racial issues, just like Rod Serling was.
Yeah, and they were very nuanced in the way they told their stories. I learned a lot watching Have Gun Will Travel and Star Trek and the Twilight Zone, and they're very nuanced in the way that they would tell their stories. Whereas the people today, they just want to hit you over the head with their messaging. Gene Roddenberry would make social commentary on society by making it about the human condition, and that was shown in a lot of the Star Trek episodes he did, and it was shown in some of his Star Trek: The Next Generation episodes. He always tried to make it where he wasn't going to preach to people, but he made it where you would learn the lesson by seeing the characters go out here and just living their lives and making the social commentary in the future that made us relate to things of today.
All right. Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, and that's what they did. That's what it was all, even the story of Emmett Till, I read that Roddenberry actually wanted to, not Roddenberry, Serling tried to do a story like that in the Twilight Zone, and the network wouldn't allow him. The sponsors wouldn't allow it. So he had to redo it in a way that was in a science fiction.
Yeah, they would use science fiction and fantasy to make their commentaries, and that was something that Rod Serling had an influence on me, and I mean, for many years. And my recent book, East Team Cancel Vacation, I was trying to make a commentary similar to the way Rod would do about cancel culture, because I see how cancel culture was affecting people. And when I looked at guys like, again, your Gene Roddenberry's and your Rod Serlings, they always made a commentary about what was going on in society, but they would always be very subtle about it. And you would have to really think about it to really get what they were saying. But when I would watch it, I would be like, yeah, I see what he's saying about, racism, or see what he says about, people being intolerant, or people being very, about the commentaries about war and things like. I know Rod Serling and Gene Roddenberry would love to. They would take a shot at cancel culture, and they would take a shot at these culture wars. I know that they would, if they were alive today, they would have been writing a script at the Twilight Zone or making a TV show about all this stuff, and they would be really going in on that. I know they would make a commentary on the Me Too movement. I know they'd even make a commentary about Trump and Joker Joe, or even a commentary about Hillary. They would be making commentary about what's going on today, and they would be telling the stories that would really make you think about what's going on here today.
Yeah, absolutely. Y'all hit that like, share, and subscribe button, ladies and gentlemen, and please donate to the Cash App, PayPal. This channel is not monetized, so I would appreciate any support you would give. Support our brother Shawn James by uh, purchasing the books like Stop Simping in Cyberspace. I mean, I don't even watch the Star Trek stuff on Paramount. A lot of stuff is agenda driven. Let's just put it that way. I stopped watching P Valley because of that too. Yes, you can buy the book, The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania versus William H. Cosby Jr., The Destruction of Due Process, on Kindle. I put up the link for Sean's Stop Simping in Cyberspace, as well as his Kickstarter that we have that was in the
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. But buy Stop Simping in Cyberspace too. Buy my book on Kindle right now, ladies and gentlemen. Sean, do you have any last minute things you want to say?
Well, I want everybody to head over to Kickstarter to pick up the first John Haynes comic, and $5 will get you a digital copy, 15 will get you a paper copy, and you can get that copy autographed by putting an autograph request in the surveys. And in addition to the John Haynes Kickstarter, I also have the books of the SJS Direct 2022 catalog, ISIS Legacy, and East Team Horror of the Hyena Woman, currently available on Amazon.com. So if you want to pick up some positive Black fiction for your family, you can head over to Amazon.com right now to pick up ISIS Legacy and East Team Horror of the Hyena Woman, and you'll be able to get a copy of the first John Haynes comic on Kickstarter by, again, clicking that link. And you've got 8 days left to pick it up. And the files have already been sent to the printer, and I'm already just waiting to put in the order. So everybody who puts in a pledge for a paper copy is going to get a paper copy, and everybody who puts in a pledge for a digital copy is definitely going to get a digital copy.
All right, great. DJ B-Side said, William Shatner? You
I
know,
wish.
I'm wondering if he knows him for real, for real.
Yeah.
Captain's Log, Stardate 427. We've come across a cosmic enhancement over here. They haven't got a couple of hours. Bones, fix it. Damn it, Jim. I'm a doctor, not a technician. Oh, he says, yeah, he knows him. Oh, cool. Man, you gotta hook me up with some Trekkie stuff. No, I'm just kidding. I know he doesn't care for Star Trek fans too much from what I've heard. But tell Captain Kirk 10-4. Wear no red shirts here. Right. I'm sure he gets stupid Star Trek jokes all the time. Like that, remember that episode of Fresh Prince when Carlton kept trying to harass him? Okay. Hey, I didn't get my autograph. And he ran after him. Oh, it says, now he's cool with us. Okay. Well, tell him I said hello. Yeah, I'm a huge Star Trek fan. Yeah, I loved Leonard Nimoy, Spock. As long as people aren't stupid, he's cool. Yeah, he had. There was a show he did uh, called "Bleep My Dad Says" that I thought was real funny, and it only lasted one season, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I wish it would have gone on longer, but I don't know what it is with networks. I guess it's spending costs and so forth that gets them. But what you want 100 million people to watch an episode? It doesn't happen all the time. It's got to get
Nope.
a chance to build. But it was funny. I thought, yeah, rest in peace to Leonard Nimoy. This is actually a Jewish blessing. I learned.
Oh, okay.
That's what that means. That's where he got that from. He saw the rabbi doing this, some type of prayer, and he decided to incorporate that into Star Trek as his role for Spock. Someone said Jordan Peele was going to be a writer in the vein of Stewart and Roddenberry. Who's Stewart?
I don't know who that is.
Is he being certain? You mean Rod Serling? He said
Yeah.
Jordan fizzled. Well, remember he had that Star Trek. He had that Twilight Zone revival he did that didn't go nowhere. I watch even Alfred Hitchcock Presents. Still, the old one.
Yep.
That stuff is still good.
They made shows to last. I mean, these shows are 60, 70 years old, and they still resonate as strong as they did when they premiered.
I mean Sophie Stewart. Do you think Joe? I have seen the movie Nope. I won't say too much, but let's just say Nope. Have you seen? What do you think of Jordan Peele? Do you think his stuff is good? Or
I haven't seen any of his stuff. I have to go take a look at it.
Get Out? You never saw Get Out?
Nope, I haven't seen it.
Oh my God, you got to go see it. Derek says every time they try to revise Twilight Zone, it never works.
Because it doesn't have Serling. They don't understand how to make social commentary.
I think, yeah, if you don't have Rod Serling was the intro for it. He could pitch a show. He could sell a show. That's how good he was. Yeah. We're going to get out of here. Speaking of selling stuff, you all ought to get some Nani's Creole blends. Try it on chicken, meat, or fish. Nani's goes great with every dish. Subscribe to our Commonwealth of Pennsylvania versus William H. Cosby book page at Commonwealth Cos, at Commonwealth Cos. Buy video sold on Spotify, Amazon, and Apple. Of course, you can donate to the Patreon, and if you want to advertise with the channel, you can go here. Just email me and hit me up. And of course, our theme song got to get on up. I got to think of a new book to write, Shawn. So hopefully I can write one. I have a children's book that I had finished some years back I'd like to publish, but I need to know if we got some artists here who could draw. Please let me know. But let's go ahead. We're going to get on up out of here. And a lot of the Star Trek actors and actresses were in Twilight Zone stuff.
Yep.
George Takei even did an episode. Leonard Nimoy. William Shatner, of course, he was in the episode with the gremlin on the airplane. Well, we're going to get out of here, Shawn. Thank you again. You all stay tuned. I'm going to have some videos dropping. Oh, speaking of events, please check out the Comedy Night Explosion, ladies and gentlemen, on Eventbrite that we have this Saturday. Y'all got to come out if you're in the New Orleans area. I'm your host with the most. And we got people, we got funny local talent from Troy Duchesne, Chu Boo, Dean of Orleans, Brandon Haynes, Nature Boy, and our headliner is Mr. Kerry B. You don't want to miss it. Yeah, the Island Limits was great too. The 80s Twilight Zone series was actually, that was actually pretty good. That was probably the closest one. But go to Eventbrite, get your tickets if you're in the area. Shawn, thank you.
Thank you very much for having me on.
And as always, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to have you on tonight. I hope you're safe and doing blessed. I will see you on the next one. Enjoy the weekend. But let's go on and get on up, ladies and gentlemen. Good night.
Night, everybody.
Girl, come on. Gotta dance to the beat, cause on the dance floor is where we'll be. Show me what you got. Gotta feel the groove.
Feel the groove, get on the floor. Get on the.
Right now the party's wasted. There's nothing much to do. But once the groove gets started, tell me, what do you have to lose? Just look into my eyes, girl, as we glide across the room. And what to my surprise now, the beat takes hold of you. Now if you're feeling like I'm feeling, so come on baby, let's start dealing. Time to get this party started. Ain't no time for the broken hearted. When the rhythm takes hold of you, there's only one thing left to do. Cause the beat is really moving. Time to feel your body moving. Gotta get on up and move your body. Cause when the beat is really grooving, it's time to feel your body moving. Gotta get on up and shake something.
Feel the groove, get on the floor. Get on the.
Tell the DJ play the whispers. Rock steady in the mood. Put on earth, wind, and fire. Tonight we're gonna groove. Show me how you do the four corners. Electric slide or two. Hit the bus stop or do the bunny hop, baby. It's really up to you. Now if you're feeling like I'm feeling, so come on baby, let's start dealing. Time to get this party started. Ain't no time for the broken hearted. When the rhythm takes hold of you, there's only one thing left to do. Cause the beat is really moving. Time to get your body moving. Gotta get on up and move your body. Cause when the beat is really grooving, it's time to feel your body moving. Gotta get on up and shake something.
Feel the groove, get on the floor. Get on the.
Now 2020 hasn't been the best year of all times. We've been dealing with death, the pandemic, racism, bad policing, and all the bad rhymes. But like Uncle Snoop once said, if you breathe and you achieve. And so if you're ready, I need you all to get on up. Are you ready? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Get your butt on the dance floor. 5 and 6 and 7, 8. This jam we appreciate. We're gonna slide and step on the beat. On the dance floor is where we'll be.
Feel the groove, get on the floor. Get on up
And move your body. Cause when the beat is really grooving, it's time to feel your body moving. Gotta get on up and shake something.
Feel the groove, get on the floor.
Get on the floor, baby. Gotta get on. Come on, baby. Gotta get on. Baby.
Feel the groove, get on the floor. Get on the.
You're now entering a zone. No, you are not in the 3-point zone or the 2-point zone. You are in the street clothes zone. You are on the bench and you are riddling real bad like a bench player. And you should ought to do something with your eyebrow. Yes, you are street clothes. You are in the Barkley zone. That's right. You are in the street clothes zone. You have one eyebrow It is terrible. Terrible, terrible. Come on, do it, Annie.